everybody! Hi Tamar! We have a great video today. We're very excited to talk about the TV show Vikings, which we love so much.
Really love it.
I think we have some interesting insights, storytelling-wise, historically, politically, cinematically. So basically, if you haven't watched the show, Vikings is set in 9th century Northern Europe, right? It starts with the Vikings, but then we see the English, the French, right? And the main character is, of course, Ragnar Lothbruk.
Yeah, who is not a historical character per se. There's to suspect that there was some kind of a Ragnar Lothbruk figure.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But in the show, it's like a amalgamation of, thank you, amalgamation of like a lot of different stories from like Nordic heroes, Viking heroes, that were connected and put together
into one person.
Even though he's not a historic character per se, a lot of true historic characters, historic figures, connected themselves in terms of genealogy to this Ragnar Lothbruk figure.
Why?
In a similar way, like for like Arthur, King Arthur, and stuff like that. Maybe to legitimize a claim or to make themselves like greater than life because they're descendant from this mythical character, mythical figure, Ragnar Lothbruk. So in that sense, he's kind of a founding father of the Vikings. In this historical period in which they were called Vikings, they put themselves on the map.
Right.
And
affected history.
And affected history, and people in Europe started to notice them.
Okay.
And the fact that the Vikings chose this character to be their founding father tells you something about the Vikings in the sense that what story do they tell themselves about themselves.
So in Ragnar Lothbruk, you can see that the Vikings see themselves as bold, as brave, ingenuous. They know how to solve problems. Very creative, very creative.
They were perceived as these barbarian, violent people. I don't know, like that. But Ragnar Lothbruk has this like conniving quality to it. A calculating trickster.
Thinks outside the box.
Outside the box, exactly. Open-minded a little bit.
Very open-minded.
Yeah. Very secure with his own faith.
And in the same way that Ragnar's real story informs you about the values of the time in the 9th century, the Vikings, you can say that the changes that they made to Ragnar informs us something about our times, because in the TV show, he's a farmer turned chieftain turned king, but in the sagas, he's the son of kings.
Exactly.
So that tells you that we can relate more to our rags to riches story. It's more interesting, more compelling. So maybe this is why they changed it, because it actually would have been less interesting had he been the son of a king.
Yeah.
This guy, of course, he goes on raids and everything, but at heart he's an explorer. He wants to explore the world, to see the world. He doesn't want to destroy everything like it's this mindless barbarian. So that's very progressive. I don't know.
Yeah, and it was different times back then. If you wanted to explore, raping and pillaging was part of the deal. We can relate to that.
The thing that I most liked about Ragnar and the Vikings is that he's very, very
You're saying?
Right, that Ragnar is very, very curious. So they're not just barbarians.
In this character specifically, Ragnar, you don't get the sense that he wants power for power's sake.
Right, he does
He's not like this politician that says, I don't need to be number one and stuff like that.
It was forced on him.
You get the sense also that he's like more tolerant and open-minded, very curious, like you said. He wants to learn. He's not like a total barbarian, conqueror, Attila the Hun type of character, but more like of a combination between Marco Polo and Genghis Khan. And you can see like their attitude of the Vikings towards the other 50% of their population, the bears, the women. The women fight.
Right. And they're good fighters.
Yeah, they can hold land, they can rule.
Right.
They have
rights.
They have rights. They have a vote in some sense.
Right.
They can be free people.
And even the women who stay behind while the men fight are respected for it. It's not just that they're just these little women just hush, 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 go to the kitchen. No, it's not that way at all in the show.
And it's also true historically. Like you have tales of Vikings women fighters. Even like the German tribes has something very similar. And the Vikings are descendant of the German tribes that crossed the channel to Scandinavia.
Okay.
Show is tries to be historical, but
Right.
it does.
They have an advisor that is an expert on Viking history and culture.
Yeah, and it's made by the History Channel, you know.
Right.
But the show doesn't try to be historically accurate in terms of what happened
And who did what?
and who did what. But the mishmash they're doing between the characters like justified itself.
Okay.
And like
For example?
Rollo, this character Rollo.
Brother of Ragnar Lothbruk.
He's a true historical character. He was the first Duke of Normandy or something like that. He did help the French king and the French emperor back then, like the Roman
Charles the Simple,
Charles the Simple.
who's in the
He
show.
did help him to defeat Vikings, and he got some land, and he did marry into something like that. But from his line came William the Conqueror, who was a Norman, was the Duke of Normandy. Yeah, no, you have Lagata as well.
She's Ragnar's ex-wife.
Yeah, and she's not a particular historical figure, but they wrote about her in chronics centuries after these events. So, and they based her on some Nordic deity. So it's like very cool that they put her in this show because she played a role in the Vikings' memory, even though
Right.
she wasn't.
So it's a little bit like Ragnar.
Yeah, exactly.
Though in the Nordic sagas she wasn't married to Ragnar, it's just somebody else.
Yeah.
Also King Egbert of Wessex, also a real historical figure.
Yeah, one of the great kings of Wessex before there was an England. They make it a point in the show to see Egbert looking at the map of England with all the kingdoms like Westeros, and like contemplating with himself, I have this vision of England.
And they make a point to show you his grandson
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, is
Alfred.
Alfred the Great, later after the Great, was like probably one of the first true kings of England or something like that.
So I read, like researching for this video, I found out that Floki was basically the first Viking to intentionally sail to Iceland. First they got there by mistake, and then he toured Iceland. So here in the show he's a boat builder, and he's also like an explorer. So also that's very interesting. And and two of his most famous of Ragnar Lothbruk's sons are famous in real history.
Yeah.
That's Ivar the Boneless and Bjorn Ironside. Who had some really great exploits that we're probably going to see in season 5, also from Ivar.
He could be like the true Ragnar Lothbruk, like the true historical Ragnar Lothbruk. Because he did some explorer and did some crazy shit.
And we can see he's holding the maps, he wants to go to the Mediterranean.
A great thing about this show is the immersiveness that they make you go through. Like you're immersed in this historical period, even though it is not like historically accurate in terms of what really happened. That doesn't matter, at least for me.
But it feels in your gut.
Exactly. It feels like you are there. It feels foreign. It feels like you are a fly on the wall. Every time the scene starts, they speak like their own language.
Right.
Like their own, like it's ancient English and ancient French.
Ancient French has not been spoken for a millennia.
Yeah, and
until this show.
That's very brave of the show to do. They made it a point to say like they're not only aliens to you, they're aliens to each other.
Right, you can see the clash of civilizations. Part of this immersiveness is achieved because they combine some real harsh realism, in the battle and everything, with this Nordic saga. You have these characters. You have the seer who actually in the show sees the future, so you can see how they believed it was so back in the day. And there's also this harbored character, like this supposed to be like Odin, who came into their village while the men were away. I thought that really showed like the primal fear of the men while we go outside fighting. There's somebody else coming in, fucking our women, taking care of our children. Are we not men? And a lot of things that happen in the show, you really feel that they belong in a Nordic saga, like the part with Bjorn going to kill a bear in his own bare hands. It's like this is a real story, like Ragnar's son. He went in the winter into the mainland, not like inland, in the cabin, and there he fought a bear, killed him, and now he's the king.
And Ragnar acts like a dead man and go inside like this in Paris and stuff like that.
Right, but this actually happened.
Yeah, but in a different place.
Like Bjorn.
Yeah.
Did
so
that.
this is one of the biggest strengths of the show. It's like the retelling of the Nordic saga, or one of the Nordic sagas, in a modern way.
You're watching actually a saga,
Yeah.
and the fact that they took something that Bjorn Ironside actually did, and in the show they gave that feat to Ragnar. It's actually like what the Nordic sagas did themselves,
Exactly.
where they took things that other people did and then incorporated them into one person. So this is kind of like a saga. I think it's super cool.
In that sense, it's not only a show about the Vikings, but it's a show about the story the Vikings told themselves during that time, not like 300, 400 years later.
But through our eyes.
Yeah, but through our
Right.
eyes. Yeah.
And also the character development is very, I don't know, like a saga-like. It's not like there's no real arc, arc. Like a lot of the same problems reappear. Like Bjorn, every season he has to grow up, and Lagasa, one man usurps her, and then another man usurps her.
It's like the arc is like,
It's very cyclical.
it's cyclical, and in order to advance, you need like a challenge, like a true challenge,
Right.
like fighting a bear, you know,
Or
conquering stuff,
right,
you
or
know,
killing your husband just
killing your
before you
husband,
marry him.
exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But it makes sense in the show. Maybe in another show it would have been, I don't know, annoying or disappointing. But here it really works.
Yeah. The acting also is, for me at least, very good, because like you say, if you could see the same acting maybe in a different TV show, maybe it will look like a little bit over the top.
Right.
But don't forget, these people, they lived 1,200 years ago, so they're weird. They're probably weird. They're very different than us. They
Right.
speak differently, not only different language, but different nuance and different, you know.
Right. And even different psyche
different
altogether.
psyches.
That's like pre-Freud, 1,000 years.
Fluid.
Also, the way they depict religion in the show, this is incredible. Not like it's easy for us when we watch them believe in Odin and the Nordic gods. We say, okay, whatever, that's stupid. But they don't treat it as stupid, and they don't differentiate between their religion and Christianity, which still exists.
Yeah.
They show them both of them just as valid. And as you have the seer with the Vikings, you have like the statue of Mary, like has tears of blood, and Athelstan really sees that, and you see that through him. And as much as this religion is silly, the other one is just as silly, like not helpful at all, only to just explain your mistakes. We lost. It was fated by the gods.
Yeah.
And they have a really smart play with the POV. Are you rooting for Ragnar when he wants to sack Paris? You really want him to sack Paris, but then are you rooting for Rollo, who is a traitor and killed his own men, but he's protecting Paris? So basically, you can identify with all sides, and also we can identify with just the common people living out there. Just try to imagine you're living your life. Just like a regular day, nothing special happens.
You get up in the morning, sow some seeds and on the ground.
And then the Vikings are here!
If you enjoyed the video, click like. If you want to support them on Patreon, down here. Subscribe for more videos. See you.